welcome back to the Love People podcast. I'm Mac, and I am so excited to be talking with someone today. She is just so wise. She's so funny, and she has a really cool accent because she's from South Africa. Without further ado, Kirstin Nolte.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
I was like praying about who God wanted me to have on the podcast, and automatically you came up, and you just have so much wisdom, and I'm so excited to be talking about, just all the things that we're going to get into.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so I first want to just get started by asking you, like, how did your faith journey begin, and like, why did you choose God and to follow Him, and did you grow up Christian and all that?
All right. Yeah, I think like with a lot of us, that's a long story, but the short version of it is, I didn't grow up in a Christian household, but I do remember friends of mine sometimes picking me up for Sunday school. I don't know. I don't know even now know how that happened or why, but I do remember going to Sunday school and I kind of learned about Jesus, and I knew the Bible pretty well actually, and I kind of just continued going. No one else in my family went, and then I think somewhere along the line, just the short version is I kind of settled on the fact that I always believed that there was a God, something like a greater being. And I kind of just settled on Jesus, but I didn't believe that Jesus was the only way. I also kind of explored and read a lot about other religions, because I think there was always a hunger in my heart to know the truth. I had this feeling like there is a truth, even if the truth is that there's no God, that's still a truth. And I just figured I just wanted to know. And so that was kind of when I went to college. That's kind of where I was kind of had this relationship with God, and to me he was kind of Jesus, but I also believed other stuff was true, and it kind of all led to the same path. And when I went to college, I would say it was probably the first time I met people that there was just something different about them, that I really felt I could see they had this relationship with Jesus. Like they talked about him like someone was really in the room, someone they had this relationship with, And honestly, one of the things I had a friend, a very good guy friend, and at one stage we kind of started dating. And it didn't take very long. It was like 2-3 weeks of kind of dating that I think, well, for me at least, I figured out like, no, he's really just my friend. And I really loved him as a friend. I was so scared to hurt him.
That's hard.
So when I broke up with him, there was really a shift in my journey, because I broke up with him and he wasn't devastated. Like I was like, what? He was so calm and he was so full of peace. And I remember him just saying, like, if we are meant to be together, then God will figure it out. And if we're not, then there's someone better for all of us. There was just such a sense of peace and calm about him. It genuinely caught my attention. I was like, what?
You're like, how are you so chill about this?
How can you not be devastated?
Oh, wow. And you were all nervous and you're like, oh, how is he going to take it? And he was just like, I'm like that. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And it really was like all the peace I had with what I believed kind of started disappearing in that moment. And I just started thinking, what has this guy got? Like, and so that started me honestly on a 3-year journey of just God, just in his grace, taking my false peace away from what I thought was real. And just I started meeting more and more people who had this genuine relationship with the Lord. And I was very open. I always invited people to I told them, hey, if this is the truth, like, convince me. Like, I'm open. Like, I want to know the truth, but I'm not going to believe anything if I don't genuinely believe it. So they take me to concerts, and I remember even going forward one day for an altar call at like a Stephen Curtis Chapman. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, what? No, you did not.
To one of his concerts, and I went forward because I was like, okay, well, I'll see if something moves me. And then I went forward, and I remember going back after, like, they prayed for me, and all these friends of mine were standing there, and they were going like, and I was like, no, sorry. Like, it just And I found out later that there were all these people praying for me, and I don't think they ever thought I was going to get saved, because I wasn't like this girl, like with this, way out lifestyle. I was a normal college girl. I didn't do anything. I was like a good girl, I liked going out and stuff, but I just lived a pretty normal life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and they were all praying for me. And long story short, I was always praying for like a little miracle of sorts. I asked God to, like, okay, if you're real, then can I see an angel, or can you make someone come to my college dorm room like right now, and and come
Yeah.
to me? And none of that ever happened, because I think God knew me and knew that something like that wouldn't last. Because I mean, if you look in the Bible, even the Israelites saw these incredible miracles and they kind of forgot about them. But it's the relationship stuff that sticks. And so one day I was alone. At that stage, I'd moved out of dorms and living in an apartment with a couple of friends, and I was alone, and I just surrendered. I was just like, Lord, I can't go
Wow.
forward. I don't believe all of this stuff is true. I still struggle with stuff, but I can go back to what I believed. And I'm choosing to believe this. And that's it. That's what I said. And over the next few days, it's like this dimmer light just went on, and I
Wow.
met a friend of mine one day in those couple of days that before had this really wild lifestyle, was into drugs and stuff like that. And he just, I ran into him and he invited me to church. He said, I'm going to this church, and he completely changed. And I walked into
Wow.
this church, and there were all these people just really going crazy for Jesus. And I was like, okay, this is how people should look when they believe all this stuff is true, because if
Yeah.
it's true, it's amazing. And that was it. And I just knew it was like, it's all or nothing, because
Mm-hmm.
I had to go back to my family who were not believers, and I knew I would be like really questioned and ridiculed. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And what, 25 plus years later, I'm still like, love Jesus.
That's so awesome. And that's one thing about you that I love. You just have like such a like passion and love for Jesus, and it's so evident in this the way you live. And you're like one of the, aren't you like the high school directors now? Like one of the high school directors for
Yeah, I'm like I think I'm called the high school coordinator. So
Yes.
yeah, Caleb's our high
Uh-huh.
school director, and I help lead, yeah, the high
Yeah, and
school.
it's just so cool. Like when you talk about Jesus, you just it just shows that like you love him, and like you know the word, and like you love like having a relationship with him. And I love how you said that, because I feel like a lot of people, they ask God for signs. Like if they don't believe, they're like, give me a sign.
Yeah.
And were you there last night when the guy talked about how he like,
Yes.
yeah, saw like he thought he saw like Jesus, and then
Yeah.
Jesus was saying like that's you. And so like things like that, like people need that. And I think that's so cool that God knew you and knew what you needed, and you, it wasn't like a sign or like a miracle, it was just to like
Yeah.
make the decision to follow him. And that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. It
That's
was
so
a slow change of heart. And then in the end, it was a decision. It was like, okay, are you going to believe this or not? Without
yeah.
understanding everything, without,
Hmm.
everything making sense. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And going on with that, like what would you say to someone who's like on the fence or like skeptical about Jesus? Like if you met someone who didn't believe in God, or was
Yeah.
like didn't know if he was really real, like what would you say to them?
Yeah. I think I would say that, like, I get it. Like in this world,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things going on, so many messages coming at you. And the gospel honestly sometimes sound like it's too good to be true. So I think
Yes.
some people get stuck in the fact that it's so simple, right? Because God says he's done everything for us. He's
Yeah.
paid the price, he's come all the way to us, and all we have to do is believe. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like too good to be true.
Yeah.
But I think what people miss is that, yes, that's the first step, that he's made the like the entryway like free and easy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is walking out this journey, like going on this journey with God, and allowing him to like speak to you and getting to know him, and then you get transformed and you get changed. It's like the salvation is just the first thing, and
Yeah.
that's the easy part. Well, easy, but
Mm-hmm.
once you start that the journey with him, it can get hard, but it's beautiful, right? So I think people get stuck in the fact that it's too simple, or they get stuck in the fact that it's too complicated, because we all have so many questions. I had the same questions, like, okay, if God is really true and good, then why is there so much suffering in the world? And why do so many, bad things happen to really good people and even his own people?
Yeah.
And then I'd say, once you get to know God, you realize, well, the word has a lot of answers, and there is a lot of answers for all of those things. But a lot of that only makes sense once you really get to know God's spirit and you understand God's heart, and you know that, like, all the things that concern you, like, God cares more about that than you do. Like, if you
Yeah.
about, well, what about these people that haven't heard about Jesus, or what about these people that are suffering? Like, God's heart
Yeah.
is so much bigger than ours, and I think that always helps me. Yeah, and then the other thing is, I think just people, like I did too, I wanted to understand a lot of things. And to that, I would say to people, if you're waiting to say yes to the Lord when you understand everything and it makes sense, then you're never going to get there. I've known the Lord for 25 plus years, and it feels like the more I get to know him, the more I don't understand, the more it's
Hmm.
beautiful, but the more I also know, like, he's so big and so great. Like, I mean, do I really want to serve a God that I completely understand and get? Not
Yeah.
really, because that means he's just like me. So,
Yeah.
so I just feel people get stuck on that. And the only thing I can say, and I think that's the power of someone's testimony, like the guy who was sharing last night, is just
Yes.
like, when God moves in your life, it's something you can explain, but it's like, he's so real. He's
Uh-huh.
so, it's someone like I talk to every day. Uh, he's it's you know this, it's hard to explain to people who don't know the Lord that this is like real, like he's alive and he
Mm-hmm.
talks to you and he ministers to you and he shows you stuff. It's this incredible journey with someone who, like, loves you and knows everything and has just done so much for you. I just think, for me in my journey, the more I get to know God, the more I kind of blown away by how good he is and how kind he is,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps just getting better. So yeah.
That is so good. Oh my gosh, everything you say is so good. I'm just gonna like play this on repeat and repeat. And I loved everything you said. And I think, yeah, just like making the choice to follow God. And like you said, in a world where there's so many things being like thrown at us, especially through the social media,
Yeah.
it can be hard to be like, is this even real? And I don't think I would have believed it as much as I do now if it weren't like a personal relationship, or like I was in a dark place and God like pulled me out. So that's just so
Yeah.
cool. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, Jesus is just so worth knowing. Before I knew God, I wasn't grateful for really like my family and like friends and all the things I had, and just like the relationships I had. But now I'm like, wow, Lord, like you're so overabundant in like so many areas, and you just like provide like what we need,
Yeah.
like not our wants, but like the things that like we need. So it's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you know, it doesn't get easier necessarily knowing Jesus. It's not like
Yeah.
God suddenly becomes like so easy. And in fact, sometimes it gets harder because
Yeah.
now you're in a relationship with the Lord and he really is interested in our growth. So
Hmm.
sometimes just allows us to go through certain things because we live in a fallen world, and
Yeah.
but it's how he gets you to go through things and changes your heart, and like you said, changes your perspective, and
Hmm.
kind of just walks, like, being with you in all of that. It is in those hard places that you almost grow the most, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
true. It's like my most memorable times with the Lord are in hard times, because
Hmm.
he just meets you there in such incredible ways. Like, he's
Yeah.
so amazing.
I totally agree. And like, yes, I agree. Like when, my hamstring injury, I've been dealing with it for a while, and I feel like God was trying to teach me through that, just rely on him. And like I read a verse, and it just, when like you're going through something and you read a verse and just like exactly speaking to exactly what you're going through. So
Yeah.
I read one, I don't know the exact one, but it said like, in your weakness, my strength's made known. And I just thought that was so good, and it's a good reminder that God's strong even when my body's weak, or when I'm sick, or when I feel like I'm not enough, like he's got me. And so it's just so cool with all his promises. And yeah, and I love too that like we've been using a door analogy a lot. Like God doesn't like slam like open our door. He like knocks. He waits behind the door and knocks. He's not going to force his way into your life. Like if you want him to come, if you want to get to know him, like he would be overjoyed, but he's not going to be like force his way through. He's going to be waiting for you when you're ready in the right time. So I just love that about him too. He's just such a gentleman, you know?
Yes, I always say he's such a gentleman. And I sometimes I'm like, come on, Lord, just push that door.
Just speak it down. Speak it down.
But
yeah, that's so
he's
funny.
so patient. Like, he just waits. He waits for the invitation. But when you do that, when you invite, he rushes in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next thing I want to talk about is a topic that I think is really prevalent in today's day and age, but it's been going on for years and years, eating disorders and body image. And I thought you would be a perfect person to talk to this about because I know it's something you walked through and it's something that I've walked through too and haven't really shared much about it. And I don't know much about your story either and like all of that. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it. And also, I just preparing for this and knowing that we're going to be talking about it, I feel like a curiosity, like search up like some numbers or some statistics of like people's eating disorders in USA and just like around the world. And heart broke, how to like hearts break the things that break God's heart. And I looking up these statistics, like it made me so sad. Like here's one of them. Eating disorders affect at least 9% of the population worldwide. 9% of the US population, or 28.8 million Americans, will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. And it's just like crazy to me. And I think I just want to talk about it and let people know that they're not alone and that they're loved and freedom. This freedom from eating disorders or like, not having a healthy relationship with food and stuff like that. So, like, what did it look like for you? Like, how old were you when your eating disorder started, and what was it like walking through that?
So I think I remember probably somewhere in my senior year. I vaguely remember that we probably had some big, like a dinner or something, and I'd eaten too much, and I was feeling kind of, just like nauseous. But I do remember I made myself sick. I never had to. Weird enough, not to get too graphic, but I had to put my finger down my throat. I could kind of just contract my stomach and I myself vomit, and just to bring relief. But that was definitely like an open door that it was like that start, because I do remember that day. It was almost like this discovery of a way of controlling something. So probably only 6-8 months later, it kind of happened again. Then I went off to college, and I didn't know the Lord at this stage, but and it just kind of slowly kept happening more and more. I was like in first year in college, there's kind of this joke that for the first year, the freshman college girls, they always pick up at least, I don't know, 5 or 10 pounds,
Yeah, like the freshman 15.
Is it?
Yes, I've heard that before.
And I think I was like probably one of the only college girls that didn't, but I cheated, sorry, to bring some humor into this. That's kind of where it started. So, and then it kind of just progressively got worse and worse. And then when I was, it kind of feels so long ago, but then at some stage, I think I probably told my parents, or they maybe suspected, because I was in college away from home, like a flight away. But when I go visit home, there was all this free food that I didn't have to pay for, so it was even easier, to kind of binge. And my dad was a doctor, so I think he organized for me to see a counselor where I was, close to my college, and I went a few times. But somehow for me, I knew, I felt like whatever the lady told me, I kind of knew. Like I was very open-eyed about what was going on and that this wasn't good for me. And so I kind of stopped going, which I'm not saying I wouldn't recommend this. I'm just saying for me at that stage, it's almost like I knew that the pathway for me was going to be a little bit different. And then, long story short, then I got saved. It didn't go away. But then I kind of was bringing it to the Lord, and I had people pray for me quite often. But yeah, sorry, I'm answering, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm answering your question. That's where it started,
No,
basically.
you're all good. No, I love that. And so did you ask your parents for help, or they noticed and are like, we're
I
gonna
think I think it was a little bit of both. I think they
mm,
suspected it, and I think I asked for help, but I do know it's hard for people to ask.
yeah. No, because I know that there's so many like different like segues of how people like get into their eating disorders. And I think some people feel like alone, like they don't want to tell anyone about it. Some people like me, like I didn't even really know I had like an eating disorder, unhealthy relationship with food. I thought I was just being healthy, like
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
social media said. And then others are like open to like asking for help and like wanting that. So I think that's like really good that you asked for help and like your parents were like alongside you, like wanting to like see you get better.
I think for when I had it, it was very much was a more like secretive thing. It
Mm,
wasn't like normal, and so asking for help definitely then I think was definitely hard because it's a pride thing too.
yeah.
Struggling with this thing and admitting to it. But it was just me and my parents that knew, and a few people. Well, one or two people that I had pray for me, but I didn't tell them what it was though. I just went up for prayer
Hmm.
when once I started going to this church.
Yeah.
I do think, and that's like one time that I shared at that Monday night about it.
Hmm.
I think what surprised me so much afterwards in the conversations I had with a lot of the girls was that in this generation, it is so incredibly normalized.
Oh
It blew
yeah.
my mind. It's
Yeah.
like almost all of the girls were like, I didn't even know that this was a disorder, that this is like not healthy for me, that this is not
Oh.
good for me. Like I was
Hmm.
blown away. It made me so sad because it's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, all these eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia. So
Hmm.
what I had was bulimia, and then there's a few other ones. It's that what's it called? Orthorexia.
Hmm. Yeah.
Started thinking about and very controlled eating. But a lot of these they are really, it's dangerous. Like you are slowly killing
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes.
With bulimia, it's like really bad for your heart if you do that over the long term. You get depleted
Hmm.
of certain um, things that your body needs, and it's just, I mean, you could die. So
Yeah.
it is a serious thing. It's not, it's become so normalized, but
Hmm.
it's really not healthy.
Yeah. No, and for me, like what I walked through is I think mine started freshman to sophomore year, like over COVID and like a little before then.
Yeah,
And I just thought I was like being healthy. Like I said earlier, like I did running, I did cross country, and I did soccer all together. And so doing those two sports, you do like a lot of running and all of that stuff. And I would just restrict my eating. So I wouldn't be fueling my body for the things I
yeah,
was doing to it. And
yeah,
I think it was a misconception with me because I thought like being skinny would make me better at sports.
yeah,
But in reality, like I got low iron, like iron deficiency because I wasn't like, having nutrients. And I remember I didn't even think I had an issue. I was just like, oh, I'm just
yeah,
being healthy. And then it got to a day, and this is when I knew this is one of the two times I knew I like had to something was wrong.
yeah,
And I remember I went to practice that day and I ran 6 miles, and then I went to soccer straight after, and we were doing like a scrimmage. So I was like running a lot because I was a forward, and I came home and I like couldn't see. Like I like blacked out because like my eyes just like weren't working. And I
yeah,
think I was thinking about it today, and I was like, my body didn't have any of the nutrients. So it
yeah.
was like using what it had. And it's just so
It's
bad for your
scary. Yeah,
body. It's so
yeah,
bad because like your body just wants like fuel and wants to be like do all the things it's supposed to do, but if you're not
yeah,
giving it the food, then it's just can't do
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
it's really sad that like the enemy's lies. That's I think what was my problem. Like the enemy's lies, I was believing them. Like you need to be skinnier to be better at this, or to
yeah,
achieve your goals, you need to like look a certain way or weigh a certain amount.
yeah, yeah.
So with you, where do you think your eating disorder really like stemmed from? Do you think it stemmed from something in particular? And
Yeah, well, I mean, besides it being so dangerous for your body, obviously it's really just not good for your mental health and your spiritual health because
yeah.
it is something that keeps you captive, for
Hmm.
it's either something that's in secret or it's something that is like just this constant like occupation with food and how much you're eating, what
Yeah.
So it just steals from you. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
like long story short, my breakthrough came when we moved to the States. I got married, we came to the States. And when we came to the States, I basically felt like, okay, this is a new start. I'm just going to leave that all behind, whatever.
Yeah.
Long story short, I realized like I didn't have control over this thing. Like it just
Mm,
kept coming back. I had control of it for a while, but then it
yeah.
would come back. And I made a friend here and I told her about it. It was really the first person besides my parents and yeah, that I told.
Yeah.
And she immediately said, okay, let's go for prayer. Because we had been doing this prayer stuff with this other lady who was kind of just into ministry and counseling and almost like deliverance type of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I went for a session with her and we discovered like that only the Lord could have shown me, because I would have had no clue that the root of my thing, like I feel like with everyone with stuff like this, there's a root issue. It's
Yeah.
never about the food. It's never about
Mm-hmm.
the food. It's about some sort of thing that you went through or something lie that you started believing somewhere on it. Mine was a spirit of rejection that I had picked up, when I was younger, that I didn't even know I had.
Wow.
And and so often the food or whatever it is that you kind of have this addiction to is a control thing. It's like maybe you feel there's something in your life that's out of control, so this is a way of controlling at least something, or
Mm-hmm.
fear, or there's all these things. So there's always a root, so
Yeah.
I think going for counseling is just such a good idea, because it will help you figure out, especially, obviously I'm biased, but especially going to something where someone knows the Holy Spirit and you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of deep dive together and figure out like, where is this really coming from? Because if you get to
Yeah.
that, you can plug that thing out. And I just wanted, as an encouragement to anyone who's listening, who's struggling with things, the difference between like being stuck is preoccupation with food and not like for me, the journey was, it took me probably 4 years to get to this point, but to get to that place where God set me free that day, like in one day,
Mm,
we uprooted we got to the root and we got it out.
so good.
And it was, and I walked out of there and I was like, I don't know if this made a difference. But as the next few days came, I just realized, wow, that thing that was like chasing me the whole time, it's just gone. It's just like, it's amazing. It's
Awesome.
amazing. But for other people, I had a friend who went through similar things, and hers was more of a longer journey in counseling
Mm-hmm.
and almost like renewing the way she was thinking. So for everyone, it's a little different journey, but it's like going for the freedom
Mm-hmm.
is just worth it. It's worth it 100%, because it's just, and this is the thing. This is what I would say is that if Jesus is real, then you also need to know that the enemy is real, right?
Mm,
And there
yep.
is an enemy that would like nothing more than for you not to know who you are, and
Yep.
that you're a king's kid, that you have authority, that you have all these good things going in your life. And you just touched on that a little bit before. Like the way he does it is he lies.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in your generation, I mean, you get bombarded with lies, social media, especially, TV,
Yep.
magazines, and all these hidden messages that tell you how you're supposed to look and what you're supposed to wear, and all these things. And they are such lies, because
Yeah.
God loves you just the way you are, and it doesn't matter. Like, and it's like, if you can receive God's love, then all the other things will kind of fall into place. You won't feel like the need to do things that are unhealthy. It's like just everything kind of starts to figure itself out, but you don't have to fix it to be able to receive his love.
Yeah.
And
So
the
good.
lies thing is like, the lies, that's all the enemy can do. And
Yeah.
but the only way those lies gain power in your life is if you actually believe them.
Mm-hmm.
That would just be like, my encouragement is if you're struggling with something like that, tell someone, number one, because the
Yes.
moment you bring it into the light, it loses some of its power. A friend, a parent, a
For sure.
counselor, go and ask for help, and then have those conversations with Jesus, just to figure out like, where does this come from? What's like the root? And
Mm-hmm.
but don't let it linger, because there's freedom on the other side, and it's just too good to miss out on.
Yes, I was gonna say there is freedom in Jesus'
Yeah.
name, and that's one thing about like doing research on this. God was telling me again and again, there's freedom. Like God has freedom for you, and like like you said, there's encouragement with that, that like you aren't your eating disorder, or like you aren't like your body is God's temple that he gave you. And like that's one thing that changed my like mindset, was like I want to treat this body that God gave me, and treat it with love, like you
Yeah.
said, like having love with it. And so yeah, really inviting God into your struggles, especially like eating disorders, and like what you're eating. Like that's what I try and do. I'm like, Lord, I'm gonna try and eat things that, nourish the body that you've given me, and all of that. And that's just so good. Everything you said is just so good. This is why I wanted to come talk with you, because it's so good. When you're saying everything, I was like, preach. I was like, so true. Just so true. And you said bring it to the light. I think that's so true, because it's when no one knows about something that I feel like enemy has the most stronghold over us. So
Yeah, when
you,
he gets you by yourself and no one else knows,
yes.
he messes with your mind like nobody's business. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say number one is tell someone. Just bring it
Yes.
to light, have someone that can be praying for you, with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that already is like then you're halfway there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then I remembered what I was gonna say the next thing. Like you were saying, like God breaks chains. And like I think for the longest time, even still today, I need to like remind myself, like, no, like you can eat this, like this is good for you and stuff like that. But God is the ultimate one that like you said, like for you, that day, he like broke the chains that like were holding you captive for so long. And I think that's just so awesome that we serve a God that breaks chains, whether that be generational, something that we're going through, like anything. Like there's hope. And
Yeah. And I mean he promised us abundant life, right?
mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you're gonna live in a mansion or have tons of money or whatever that necessarily. It just means like freedom for, it's like abundant life in here, like being
Mm-hmm.
just free, and living a good life, and having freedom to make good choices, and being full of joy and love, and not having like the enemy like mess with you or kind of keep you captive. I just, yeah, it's just freedom.
So good. And we're basically out of time, but thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Everything you said is just so good. And I just love talking with you. Thank you for
Oh,
agreeing to do
me
this.
too.